No, we've worked out several times since we were together last time. Things are going really well. Um, Health-wise, Mason is going to take some team reps today. He's out of his boot. He's moving around better. So we're going to give him about 10 or 12 plays of the team period. And Seaton's back to playing. Jarwin's back. I don't know who else will be out there, but so for the most part, as Mason comes along, we're a healthy team. Our practices have been good. We've we've worked very hard. We've stressed our team, and so we'll work out today and off tomorrow, and then work out the 23rd Wednesday morning, and then we'll let them go, and then we'll meet them at the bowl site.
Mike, is it hard for you to step out of that role for a couple of days and, be a dad and have Christmas and then jump right back into the football mode?
Not really. For the most part, we do something every day, and they're with me. They're out of school now. They're with me at practice yesterday, and so they kind of live this life and understand it, and they'll be here today. So they understand, and even though we have days off as coaches, we'll still work. We just don't have to be here all day long. And but it's a fun time to be with them. It's nice to have them out of school and have them hanging around practice.
Will, thank you, Mike. Will Mason start if he's 100% healthy, or are you committed to going with JW and then mixing in Mason?
We've leaned more on JW just because we have to facilitate our team at this time. If he's healthy, then we'll have to make a decision in the middle of bowl practice, which would be by the 28th, how to distribute reps. It's a good question, a difficult question to answer, but I would say that with the increased role and number of practice reps that JW's gotten, that we would expect him to play at least half the game, either way, depending on Mason's health. Now, he was moving around really good yesterday, so I cautioned Mike and our training staff to not get too fired up and throw him out there, and because personally I don't want a setback now. He's doing well, but I don't want a setback. So we'll see how he practices today, and we'll kind of move forward from that point.
What do you remember about your first two bowl meetings with Ole Miss?
Well, I think the first one was with when I was here with Coach Miles, right? And we played really well. Eli Manning kept the ball away from us at the end of the game. I know he completed an outcut on like 3rd and 12, and we couldn't get the ball back. 31-28 or something like that, a good game. And then in the Cotton Bowl, we played terrible. It was one of those games where when it was over, it bothered me because we just didn't play good. I mean, there's games we've lost where when the game was over, I was okay because our plan was good, the players play hard, they beat us. We didn't play good in that game. I think there was like 8 turnovers in that game. It was not a fun game, really, in my opinion, for either side. And they had the little running back that was really fast, and he broke one for about 90 yards. Other than that, there wasn't a lot to talk about in that game.
Haunt you, 09? Because you go into it loaded. Dez, Hunter.
Yeah, is that the year Kendall was hurt? Kendall was hurt that year, most of the year, and then Dez, is that the year he got suspended? Yeah, I mean, some of those things we can't control. The Dez Bryant situation, and then obviously with Kendall getting hurt, you always hope that something like that doesn't happen, but doesn't happen. But there's not anything you can do about it.
But I mean, won't you always wonder what if you
Oh, sure, but I mean, and you stay in this business long enough, you think about a lot of different things and wonder what if.
Game stand out as one of the most memorable in terms of the disappointment after it, that Ole Miss 2009.
Yes, yeah, I just didn't think that we played good, and I just didn't think particularly that they really played that great. And of course, it's not fair for me to judge them, and I had talked with Coach Nutt about that I just didn't particularly think it was really a fun game for anybody. If I was a fan watching it, I would have changed the channel.
So you hear that Ole Miss loses a top 5 draft pick from the middle of their defense. Do you just presume that the next guy up for them is just as good, and you just prepare that way?
It doesn't really have any factor in how we prepare. Obviously, he's a good player, and he makes a difference in games, but it doesn't change our approach and what our schemes are going to be going into the game.
10 of these now, these bowl preps. And have you reached a point where you can always get a good feel for how they're engaged, how your guys are engaged and motivated? Or is it really fluctuate, or is it pretty consistent?
As soon as I think I have a good feel for it, then I could be wrong. It's like pregame warm-ups. It's like watching a pitcher in the bullpen before he goes out to pitch. How do you really know? And our players have been focused. I think our plans are good. Our coaches have worked hard, and our practices have been intense. So that pleases me as a head coach. Other than that, try to get them all there healthy, make sure their condition is where it needs to be, and have a good week in New Orleans where they can enjoy themselves, but also get prepared to play in the game.
Did you ever have a bowl where you didn't think your players were engaged?
I'm trying to think. Independence Bowl, Insight Bowl, Holiday Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Alamo Bowl. Not really. I didn't ever think there was a time that we really weren't. The year that we just talked about, where we played in the Cotton Bowl against Ole Miss, we were beat up that year, and so we were a little scattered. But I thought we would have played better than we did in that game.
Zach was hurt. He was banged up at the end of that year.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about not using him? You had a fairly good guy over there on the
I don't know who was in charge of that, but it didn't fit our system. People say, well, change your system. It's not as easy to change it as fast. Back then, we were a little more of a quarterback run team. We ran a lot of option, and so Whedon didn't look good in practice doing that. We didn't ask him to do it a lot, but in looking back, Zach's health really affected our we played, I think we played at OU the week before or the game before, and we couldn't do much on offense. He wasn't healthy at all. If I would have known that his health was going to be as average as it was, we would have made a change and said, hey, we're going to play this way. But it's difficult to do with him at that time because of what he had brought to the football team over a 4-year period.
Zach Crabtree the other day and Lundblade today, and it might be wishful thinking, but they feel like the time between the end of the season, the opportunity to go back and watch a lot of stuff on tape and to get back to the basics in practice, they both seem a lot more confident that the run game will be better in the bowl game. Are you seeing that, or do you think they're just hoping?
Well, I'm seeing that. I don't know that exactly how much ground we can make up on either side of the ball. There's two things that need to happen in this game. We need to play better and be more gap sound on defense and stop the run than we were in the last few weeks of the season. And then on offense, we have to find a way to establish 125 yards of rushing to balance out our ability to throw the ball down the field and use a passing game that can give us a chance to score some points. We've stressed that. We're coaching it. We're working hard on it. We're getting a lot of reps. The players feel that, would be my guess, while you're getting those responses from them.
When you move your entire program, which in a bowl week you really do, I mean, you set up an office there, the meeting rooms, everything, equipment staff, how valuable is a guy like a Mac Butler when you're doing this? Because he seems to be about as smooth on this kind of operation as a guy could be.
Well, he's as good as anybody out there at what he does. Between him and Rod and really Danielle, the amount of time they put in over a 2-week period is unbelievable. And there's so much planning that goes in. And it starts with Mac. He sets it all up, and he delegates to them what needs to be accomplished. And he's just really good at what he does. Once you get there, you don't have to worry about it with Mac. And there's a lot going on, and in particular at this bowl. This is a little different setup than what we've been accustomed to. And so there's some legwork involved and some planning that's really, really important. And Mac Butler is the guy that you want to be in charge of that situation.
Mike, with all the assistant turnover you've had over the years, and now you've had a full season with this group, is this one of the better assistant coaching staffs you feel like you've ever had in terms of game planning week to week and how the personalities have meshed? I mean, how do you kind of reflect on this year?
I'm very comfortable with our staff. I'll know more a year from now, but I think this is the best recruiting staff we've ever had. I think we'll find out, because you don't know until you get those guys here and you see how they fit into our system. But in the offensive and defensive room, they have really good continuity. They check their egos at the door, and they've worked well together. And I think the team, the players, feel that. And when you have that type of relationship where the coaches can work well together, then I think there's more trust involved in the organization and the team. And I think that's the situation we're in right now with our staff.
Against a guy who got his start coaching high school football. When you have been reloading some of these staffs, have you considered any high school guys? I mean, you're recruiting in Texas. There's a lot of up-and-coming coaches. Did that ever cross your mind when you're looking at guys?
We always evaluate a potential high school coach, and there's a lot of different areas that you have to take into consideration. We haven't found that that's something that we think is best, but some of the better coaches out there are high school football coaches. They have to coach both sides of the ball. They don't have people that set them up. They don't have the Mac Butlers. They don't have assistants that take care of what they're responsible for every day. And there's a lot of really good coaches out there that are in high school football. The only adjustment for them, in my opinion, is the day-to-day operation in recruiting and being away from home, as much as our guys have to be away from home. So we haven't found that fit at this time, but certainly always something we take into consideration.
The opportunity to see Wheaton yesterday?
I didn't. We practiced yesterday, so I didn't see any games. I saw a few highlights last night at the halftime of the Eagles game. I watched a little bit of their game, and I saw some highlights, and they showed him on one bootleg pass he threw for a touchdown. That was it. That's all I saw. But I did text him, and he responded back and told him I was proud of him and that I think they're going to find they've got a good player. That he's a company guy. He's going to say yes sir, no sir. He's going to play hard. He's going to compete and do what he's told, and I think that they picked up a good player.
And the final say on it, though, Mike, if Rudolph's healthy enough to play, wouldn't you be inclined to go ahead and start him?
It's hard for me to answer that because I don't know what he looks like in practice and what his health's going to be a week from now. And the one thing that that we can't forget, and is to not disregard the amount of reps that JW's gotten up to this point. So if he's really healthy and can practice again on Wednesday, and then we arrive at the bowl site and he can pick up his activity and he's functioning like he was in the middle of the year, then he certainly needs to play in at least half of the game if all those things fall into place.
I was just thinking, with Rudolph, I mean, obviously you've got the downfield game that's much more prevalent. Washington becomes more of a factor. Aitman becomes more of a factor. So I just didn't know if it would be important for you to sustain that same template where you have Mason starting and JW, kind of the situational guy, even if JW is going to get more snaps than he usually would.
It's interesting. JW throws the ball down the field as much as Mason does. He just hadn't had as many reps. If you take number of plays other than goal line, if you take him out of goal line and short yardage, which that's not going to happen, if you take his plays versus the number of Mason's and percentage of time the ball's thrown down the field, they're pretty close. What you're saying is right, but I just don't have an answer based on, I don't know how he can withstand 10, 12, 15 plays going through individuals. See, he went through individuals yesterday, and he was fine. So everybody says, throw him in there, let's go. Well, I'm not for that right now. I want to ease him into it because I think he's far enough along understanding our system that he can practice 3 or 4 times full speed in Louisiana and playing the game successfully, so I don't want to set him back. But there's, the organization's excited because he's been going through individual and he's fine. And in the team settings, we haven't put him in yet, and he stands behind me, and I hear the ball being thrown by my head the whole time because he wants to get in. He keeps throwing the ball behind me, but he's not ready to be in a team setting, in my opinion, but we're going to try it today.
Not to put any extra pressure, added pressure on the special teams coordinator, but some of your best bowl wins have come down to either a kick on a couple of occasions, even the Fiesta Bowl, or a huge special teams play. And it would look like with the talent of these two teams, there's a good chance the Sugar Bowl does the same thing.
Well, it's always going to be a factor. Kick coverage is important, and the ability to make a play on a return unit could certainly show up. And it's one area that you always have great concern about in a bowl game because there's a month to prepare and there's a lot of things that can change. So you try to be as sound as possible, but also come up with a plan you think gives you an advantage.
You like scheming, special teams? I mean, you've been around. Robbie was pretty good as a schemer. Joe was a really good schemer. So you've been around some guys. Do you like growing up?
Yeah, Ty Linder, he was really good at it. Joe was a little more consistent, didn't get as much out of the box as Robbie does. Robbie's very, very good in getting out of the box. And so we have a plan in place. Some of it Disher had set up prior to him getting the job at Toledo, and we've made some changes. And so hopefully it'll be good for us. It'll certainly make a difference in a game like this. If we can slow their run down and we can manage some rush yards and be able to throw the ball down the field, special teams in the end could be the difference.
Had such fun wrinkles last year against Washington, obviously, using Castleman and Halkow and two quarterbacks out there from time to time. The stakes in a bowl like that aren't quite as big as one of those bigger New Year's Day bowls. Is it still tempting? Are we going to be having as much fun watching you guys on the first as we did a year ago, or is it a little bit different this year?
No, we'll always have new plays in a bowl game. We've been that way from day one, and so we have time to prepare, and we want to have some fun with the players and in a game, and so we'll have a few things that are different than what some of the people haven't seen throughout the season.
Bowls in that way that you could throw out, Castleman-like play in a bowl, just something that the guys can rally around and practice leading up to and that sort of thing?
Well, you have 3 weeks to prepare, so you can actually throw a few things in and see how it looks, and if it's not something that makes us happy, you can get rid of it and make a few adjustments, and you just have a little bit more time to accomplish some thoughts that we may have had during the season that gives a chance to have success in the game and have the players have a little fun.
Will it be a priority this spring for you not to just develop backup quarterbacks, but to develop a situational second quarterback? Will that be something you want to go with?
We would have to evaluate what we have, and if we think that there's a player that can contribute and help us win games in September, then we would certainly accommodate using another quarterback.
Would Cole Neff be a guy you might consider, considering how good he was as your scout team guy last year?
Not now. He's pretty settled in on the wide out H-back spot for us. He's not a guy that we've looked at that position at this time.
Questions coming up on 11:55.
Okay.
Coach Gundy, how many practices do you get for a bowl game? 14?
14.
So, just talk a little bit about the impact of 140 practices that you've had over the past 10 years, and
Sure.
what impact has that had on your program?
Well, it allows you to keep them together for a time when, if not, they're at home. And guys that need to be with us, they get a chance to go home with their families for 3 days before Christmas, and then they go home for a week or so after the bowl game. And if not, they're home now for a month. And so we lose them. We lose their atrophy in their body, and they're not going to be in very good shape. And that getting them started again before winter conditioning is difficult, like all of us. That's what happens. And so it's important to have them here, the system, different things we can do, certainly benefit our program.
Your return game was
a little shaky early in the year, but McCleskey gave you the big one at Lubbock. He seems to be settled in pretty good. Are you liking what he's giving you on the punt return now?
Yeah, I think he's going to develop into being a good punt return guy. If you look at the numbers across the country, and in particular in our league, you're not seeing as many punt returns as you have in years past because spread punt, more speed on the coverage units. They can get downfield and defend the returner, and the punters are getting so good at kicking the ball 40, punting the ball 40 yards in the air with hang time. There's not as many returns, but McCleskey has gained some experience. He's settled in. He still takes some chances, which is okay, and he's improving. And throughout his career here, he should be a good returner for our team.
Do you have a most memorable bowl win, player or coach?
Well, I think they're all big, but obviously Fiesta Bowl's a big one. Last year was fun. It was supposedly a big underdog and had a good game. And, the Alamo Bowl, we won 11 games. So they're all big. When we played in the Independence Bowl, we beat Alabama. They had a coaching change, but still that was a big win for our program. So anytime you have a game, they're all big. I always say the next one's not going to be big if you don't win the one before. So anyway. All right, thanks.